All right, looks like we're live. Welcome everybody for another weekly live cast. Here I've got Alex Holland. Alex is a conversion focused copywriter. He works primarily for websites and landing pages. He's worked with over 100 startups, global technology brands like Adobe, Salesforce, and Red Bull. I want to hand the stage over to Alex to give a little bit of an introduction to his background. We're going to be talking a lot about copywriting for your website and really how to use words in a way that creates the right action for the right people to take when they are visiting your website. So Alex, welcome to the live cast. Great to have you on. And yeah, tell us a little bit about your background story and kind of what has led you to where you're at today in your work as a copywriter.
Thanks for having me. So I trained as a journalist originally, and then I switched into sales and marketing 14 years ago. I spent 6 years in enterprise sales for software and advertising brands. And then at 31, I switched to marketing. So I've been in marketing now for 8 years. And the last 5 years, I've been focused exclusively on landing pages and website homepages. Actually, website homepages to be specific. So either launching new products or optimizing and improving revenue and conversions for existing products were two main things.
Mm. I want to ask you, because you had mentioned this, I was watching a video that you were on. I think it was the one with Reloom actually. And you were talking about there's a difference between landing pages and home pages.
Yeah.
And I thought that was interesting. I want to hear your take on that. Like, how do you distinguish between the two?
No one actually wants landing pages. They think they do. So an actual landing page is some people call them a squeeze page. People argue over definitions, but the most common one would be an actual landing page is a very basic page that has a form that captures an email address. So if you click on
Mhm.
an advert and it gives you a quick headline, a mini sales, which is your email address. 90% of the time when someone says, "Can I have a landing page?" I ask them, what for? And they say, "For our website." And I'm like, "You mean a website homepage?" And this is an important distinction because a landing page or a sales page, which is a third option, a sales page, which might be if you click on an advert, it gives you a complete website page that walks you through buying a product. They're both very conversion focused. It's very straightforward. Someone's clicked an ad, we have purchase intent, or the conversion might be to say book in for a demo or book in for a webinar, but
Mhm.
it's very straightforward. We're trying to get people to do the thing. A website homepage is different. Website homepage, we have people arriving at a variety of different points in a user journey. Some of them are ready to buy and they need to be able to do that. Some of them are finding your brand and your product for the first time. They're not ready to buy. And we need to walk them around your product, show them how it works. The point of a homepage is to explain your product and explain why your brand and your business exists.
Yeah, I had couple months well, actually it was earlier this year. I was working with a digital marketer, and one of the things that she mentioned about kind of the importance of the website is that when people, like, you've got the sales page, and when people click through the ad, it takes them to the sales page. But one of the like, I guess the usefulness of the website is because people will sometimes they will go to the website to kind of perform some due diligence and research you, make sure you're legit. So is that kind of what you mean is in terms of being able to, like, you don't know where they're at in the user journey. It could be that they're clicking through an ad and they just want to verify your credibility and make sure that you're somebody that's serious. It could be that they find you on social media and they're just wanting to learn more about what is that you do to get a clear picture. Um, what else do you see there as far as like the function of the actual homepage of the website where it can be important?
Yeah, there's a few categorize this and divide it up. And one of them would be if we're talking exclusively about the end user, would be they first discover your product. You know, you think about a simple three-stage funnel. You have awareness, you have evaluation, you have conversion,
Yep.
and they might develop awareness of your brand via blog content, via videos they've seen. Um, and they might also engage with you at the evaluation stage. They're consuming content that helps them to understand your product. And at any of these points, they could be jumping onto your page, jumping off it, and your website needs to serve those people at each of those different stages so they can find for relevant content, but also as well, particularly for B2B, and particularly
Mhm.
for higher value B2B products, these are multi-stakeholder sales processes. So understanding that we are primarily addressing the end user, but we've also got, for example, management have more tactical interests. They might not be using the let's take, for example, a typical B2B sales app where the sales reps on the ground are using, let's say, a smartphone app or like a basic a web app. The manager has a different interest. The manager is looking through a some sort of a platform where they can see the performance of the entire sales team. But then you
Mm,
have above that, you have C-suite, and they aren't going to touch this. They have no interest in the functionality. They care about how it supports they care about the functionality to the degree that it enables high-level strategic goals. There's the odd exception. I actually work with a platform recently. It's a supply chain digitization platform. They're actually selling directly to C-suite. So that means
mm,
our homepage is very light on features. We don't show them a dashboard. We're talking very much in high level. This is how you can achieve 3 to 5 year objectives, growth objectives with our product. We then also have people like blockers. So blockers could be people in finance, people in IT who are kind of itching for a reason to say no because a lot of the time they just don't want change. They
mhm.
don't want their lives to be made difficult, and we need to create content for those people. So somebody in finance and somebody in IT can understand, A, we're compliant. We've got compliance with anything from GDPR to different EU and American financial legislation through to just helping them to understand we're actually going to make your lives easier. Somebody in IT is going to have to install your app. Why would they bother doing that? If you explain that actually it's going to be more stable, it's going to give you less headaches, creating content for those people too. I'm
Yeah.
always writing primarily for the end user, but it's important to understand what the sales process looks like, to map that out, and to have content for each of those people on there.
Mm. Well, that brings up another question I have, and I know that, especially, kinda speaking to people who are in, uh, are more generalists, like they seem to try to work with so many different verticals or markets or different types of audiences. This particularly seems to come up a lot with coaches. Um, what are you like? How should they think about their copy and their website page copy in terms of how they're speaking to their audience when there is this almost as like a fork in the road between audiences and who they're trying to speak to? Like, what could be a way to think about that for that particular individual?
I think generally I tend to write a website predominantly for somebody who's discovering the brand for the first time. Talking to them as if they haven't actually experienced a product, they haven't experienced a brand. There's typically no harm in doing that. Even if somebody's familiar with your brand, reminding them why you exist, reminding them of the mission
Mm,
you're on. And
yep.
also, as well, if they are familiar with your brand but they're not a customer yet, repitching them isn't a bad idea as well. So basically, right, don't need somebody who doesn't know my business brand yet. And the whole nature of a way that people engage with web content is people skim past
Yeah,
things very know and understand. So if the early part of the homepage is very familiar to them, they'll just scroll past harmlessly anyway. You're always going to lose more by not optimizing for the upper part of the funnel on a homepage than you are by doing the inverse.
totally. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I want to shift over to. I saw where recently. I thought this was really cool, and I'll have to drop a link in the comments for or the description of this video. It was a roast that you did live on the Reloom channel. And Reloom is like a technology that uses AI for building out wireframes and copy and different site maps for websites. I actually use it for Webflow websites. And the thing that was cool about what you did on that video was they were kind of producing the AI, and then you were coming behind as the expert to provide critiques and feedback based on what the AI had written. So I want to open up this conversation about AI and how it relates to copywriting. Tell me a little bit about that experience with Reloom. And I also would love to just hear your general thoughts about AI and how to think about it, use it for copywriting. What are some best practices that you recommend?
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there. But first with Reloom, so that's fun. That's a we're trying to achieve the same goal from different angles. So I'm a copywriter who is shifting heavily into design. That's
Mm,
kind of my, I guess, one of my USPs is I work in Figma. I work closely with design teams. I like to challenge design teams a lot,
mhm,
and think about different ways in which we can present information copy in terms of visual hierarchy. Um, and I'm pushing more into the design space. Obviously, Reloom are designers, and they're coming and pushing into the copy space. And so we're kind of meeting partway, which is really cool. And they've done a great job in terms of, first of all, Figma Pack, which is designer centric, and the AI website builder that they've now built off the back of that. And they're
mhm.
quite open about the fact, which I really admire, which is that although their website builder is great, the copy side of things there needs some work. And that's not their fault. That's reflective of the kind of interim place that we're at with AI copywriting at the moment. So I really admire the way that they said, "Hey, can you come in and roast our copy live?" I thought it was really cool. And
Yeah.
yeah, it was kind of I don't even like writing in co-work spaces because the whole
Mm,
nature of writing is it's very much like if you imagine getting a block of marble or wood, and the first thing you do is just loosely sketch out the outline of a human being. And then you go in and you loosely sketch out limbs, and then you gradually add details. So when I'm writing, I slap down really generic headlines that you wouldn't think were particularly good, like get more sales, for example. And then what I do is I go through this iterative process of what do we really mean? How do we
mm,
get them? What is unique about the way that we get those sales? What kind of sales are we getting? What kind of sales have they got right now? What kind of sales could we deliver? So you take a very generic placeholder headline, as I call them, and through 5, 10, 15 rounds, you carve out a headline that's unique to that particular brand and value proposition. And
mm.
I was doing that live in front of a bunch of people. And yeah, suffice to say, it was a bit uncomfortable, but kind of,
Sure.
yeah. I mean, I might spend 3, 4 days on a homepage, and we did it in an hour and a half. So it wasn't perfect, but I think it was interesting and educational. In terms of the AI process, so I'm speaking for myself here, but I'm also speaking on behalf of several high level copywriters I know that I talk to regularly. None of us write copy with AI. Let me put it this way. If I could write a homepage of AI, I could make $500,000 to $1 million a month easy in terms of what I can sell a homepage for. And if I could spit out 10, 15 a day of AI, I mean, I would be living in a very big house right now. You can't do that. And I've got every financial incentive to kind of prove you can, but you can't. What AI is great for is customer analysis at scale,
Mhm,
sentiment analysis. So pulling in hundreds or thousands of customer reviews about our competitor's product, analyzing those and finding out the top things about our competition's product that piss people off. That's a ton of angles for us to tackle. Running customer surveys previously before AI, the amount of customers I could survey was kind of limited by how many I felt like sitting down and reading. I still scan through them and read them, but I could survey 2, 3 thousand customers now and get AI to rank the top themes, the top keywords at each stage. So it's amazing for generating, for sorting through large data sets and identifying themes and keywords. Um, it's also good for I will throw in paragraphs of copy and say, can you spit out some headline ideas? There's a very
mm,
obvious logical problem with the idea of writing AI with copy, which is how do you know what good copy looks like? I'm generating copy here. I'm able to look at that headline and say, that sucks, that's good, that has potential. And obviously, it's not perfect. I don't always get it right, but I've got a lot of experience and I'm pretty good at identifying what a good headline might look like.
mm,
And if someone is just generating copy, generating headlines, they've got no idea what actually constitutes a decent headline. And you always give a standard answer. Oh, we could A/B test it. I mean, it's a BS argument because A/B testing is a very slow, iterative process. It's
yeah,
expensive. You need a lot more data than people think. You need at least 2,000 responses. A/B testing, A/B testing away from bad to good copy doesn't really work. You always need somebody at the helm who has an understanding of what good copy looks like to move faster. So
mhm,
AI is an incredible accelerant. It's great for identifying correlations. It's great for breaking through creative ruts. But you're just it's like handing a ship to somebody with no sailing experience and expecting them to find their way because they've got GPS, for example. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. It makes sense. I mean, it's, everybody seems to be using AI for copywriting to some degree, and um, having that the human touch, but also the experience, understanding what actually is going to work in terms of conversion, understanding language angles, having those data sets to pull from,
Yeah.
certainly makes a big difference. I want to do a quick plug while we're on the topic, because I'm on your website here and I see that you offer a roast your page, get actionable tips to improve your own landing page, which I think is such a cool offer, because sometimes, like, people, and I know this because I have conversations with people constantly about their content and their website, and it's like, it does this make sense? They get hung up on a headline, and it's like, I don't have the budget necessarily to hire the copywriter to go in and write everything for me and go through it. But this could be a good alternative for somebody who wants to get that set of eyes from the person who has the expertise, the background, the track record, knows what good copy looks like, to give some feedback. Can you tell me a little bit more about kind of roasting pages, what that process looks like for somebody that might want to explore that for their own sites?
Yeah, so I simply go and take a full page screenshot of that homepage, that sales page, whichever page it is, pop that into Figma in high resolution. I work my way through and I add comments throughout, identifying issues with a language, with a copy, with a user journey,
Hmm.
a few design elements as well. I mean, I've worked closely with a couple of high level conversion rate optimization specialists. So I'm quite good at spotting elements that are missing or not optimized. And because I've also got a Figma pack copy base, which is
Mm.
a set of building blocks based on proven conversion principles with writing prompts to help people to write better homepages, I pull in blocks from there as well. So I don't just say this pain point section is poorly done. I can give them a framework and say, here's an example, here's a framework that I'd use with this kind of formula. I mean, it's partly for people who might not have a budget, but also I work with some bigger companies where it's just that it's an early product. And even if you've got plenty of money, it doesn't make sense to hire a copywriter to go and do all of the extensive customer research and analysis for a product that might not even um, be viable. So a lot of the
Mm.
time, it's very early days. We just want to get a quick results, quick wins, and a roast can be a really good way to get a pretty solid optimized page up. And if the product doesn't end up working out, it's $350. It's not the end of the world. I had a
Yeah.
guy the other day who was a one of the developers, like a solo maker, who hired me. I popped up for roast. He did a particularly good job of following the advice I gave him, and
Hmm.
he got his first two customers during that week. He'd had weeks with no
Wow.
customers, and then that week he got two new customers, which he said he was confident was down to the steps he'd taken following the roast. So honestly, working big brands is cool in terms of, but I get more of a kick out of helping solo makers. Even though it's not the thing that pays my bills. It's like a side hustle, but that feeling of helping a small business owner to, you know, how when you work with a giant company, someone like Adobe, for example, you're like painting one room in a giant ship. Whereas when you've helped somebody to go from 3 customers to 10 customers, even if it doesn't make me a lot of money, it's a nice feeling.
Totally. Yeah. Well, I certainly I understand that place of service and being able to show up for people and be helpful and useful. And there's like that. What's the language around it? It's emotional, like, compensation that you can get out of emotional payment that comes with it too. So I want to shift into to some common mistakes that people tend to make when they're writing copy, and I want to start with this line. I see it right here on your cover image for Twitter or X, and it says sell with benefits is bullshit.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about that. Why is selling with benefits bullshit, and what are some other things that you find in copy that would also be kind of in that category of BS that might be holding back some conversions.
Yeah, sell of benefits and sell of outcomes, which is basically the same thing, is absolute BS. It's one of these typical pendulum swing type arguments. Like, is it a problem if people just talk about features and nothing else? Yes. If somebody just talks about features and they don't make any effort to, a lot of technical founders in particular have a tendency to talk about technical features and assume that their audience can connect the dots and understand what the impact of that feature is on that person's life or business. And they don't. But then we've got this whole kind of throwing the baby out of the bathwater where they swing to benefits and outcomes only. We get headlines like get 267% more sales, for example. It's
Hmm.
like, cool. Is that like a CRM? Is that a some sort of AI sales chatbot? Um, it's what I like to use, and I'm not the only marketer doing this, to be clear, is to use a 3-point framework, which is features, abilities, and benefits. And it's interesting because the abilities is the most important one for startups, and that's one that most people don't do. So,
Mm.
as an exercise for anybody listening, if you're a marketer or a founder, sit down, write down your key product features in one column on a spreadsheet. The next column, the abilities. Some people use the expression superpowers. I think that's quite cheesy, but whatever, you do you. Um, abilities, the thing that that feature enables you to do. And the benefit or the outcome, either one of those two words works, is what the impact is on you and your business. So, abilities and benefits are two different things. The ability is what it enables you to do, the benefit of the outcome is the impact on your business. And you need all three of those elements in your sales process, in your story, all three. But I would lead with the abilities and you tell people what will you enable you them to do. Again, we come back to this idea some people use as superpowers. What are the superpowers that you give people? I find that cheesy, but fine. Abilities. You lead with that, and then you provide the product features as evidence. I tell you can do something. If I tell you, for example, Jake, if you give me $10,000, I'll give you 20 back. And that's like a big leap of faith. But if I explain to you the process by which I will do that and what I'm going to do with your money
Hmm.
and how it'll work, you might then think, you know what, that's a solid argument. That's what features are for. You use the features to explain how you enable that ability and
Hmm.
they build up credibility. It's a key thing, credibility. And then we want to the benefits. This will enable you to, whatever it is, grow your business faster, maybe have a better quality of life, that kind of thing. You can flesh that out. So I would encourage people to think very hard about pitching their product in terms of features, abilities, and benefits. In terms of mistakes that people make, the other one I probably sound like a broken track record for anybody who's heard me elsewhere, but it's copying big brands.
Hmm.
But one of the most important questions you have to ask yourself is what percentage of people who land on my website know and understand my product and my business already? If you're looking at Nike, Adidas, Stripe, Microsoft, like 99 point something percent of people who land on that website know Nike make running trainers,
Yep.
um, and they make basketball shoes. Um, if you're startup, it could be sub 2 or 3%. That changes everything about how you tell your story. So what designers love to do is look at brands like Apple, and Apple have these really playful, simplistic, minimalistic, abstract headlines. Like for example, "Hello Apple Intelligence," which is kind of funny because obviously Apple Intelligence is flunked, but whatever. Um, it's been delayed for at least a year.
Right.
The iPhone 15, they hung it on titanium. It's
Hmm.
titanium. They understand that we understand deeply already what an iPhone is and does. All of
Yeah.
the different things an iPhone is capable of doing. A lot of designers see these headlines, get excited by them, and they try and pitch a brand new startup product using a really sexy, minimalist, abstract headline using 4 or 5 words. And no one
Hmm.
has the slightest clue what this product does, who it's for, or how it can change our lives. And a lot of the friction between me and other copywriters I know and design teams is we are pushing to have a more, sometimes a longer headline, but more to the point, a headline plus an explainer plus feature bullets underneath. plus a kicker above a headline that describes the product in plain English, so that we are making it crystal clear to our audience, this is our product, this is the category of product that it sits within, this is the type of person it's for, this is the type of problem it solves, this is what they're doing right now, this is why that current solution sucks, and this is how we fixed it. We have this entire hierarchy of messaging we need to communicate. And designers are like, yeah, but couldn't you just like do a 5-word, 3-word kind of cool headline? It looks cool, it looks slick. And it's like, right, if that impresses your designer friends, we're not here to impress your designer friends. We're here to get sales and to sell a product that nobody's ever seen before. We don't do that with a really sexy minimalist headline.
What do you think about like the long form sales copy pages? Like, do you think those are like the ones where it's it's almost like 40 pages of copy? I've kind of surveyed online before, like, do people actually read all that copy? It feels exhausting, but then I've heard copywriters really like preach that it's great for conversions. Is that something that you see? And I actually got an audience question as well, but I just wanted to slide that in before it leaves my mind about kind of long form sales copy. What's your position on that?
Yeah, so copywriting, there's a lot of ways to categorize copywriters. Two of the biggest fields would be people like myself, SaaS copywriters or startup copywriters.
Mm-hmm.
The other one of which is direct response copywriters.
Mm,
I have some friends who are direct response copywriters. I don't have a particularly high opinion of direct response copywriting as an industry. I think a lot of people in that industry sell bullshit products that don't make people's lives better. I was kicked out one of the biggest copywriter groups on Facebook because I told someone where to stick a product that was an alternative health medicine product aimed at people with stage 4 brain cancer. And
mm,
I just absolutely tore him off a strip and got kicked out of the group, which I'm quite happy about. Direct response to me is a field where there is a lot of playing on emotions, forcing people to make very emotional purchase decisions that I think a lot of the time, probably most of the time, are quite unethical.
yeah.
SaaS, and in particular B2B SaaS, I'm in this game because I genuinely believe in the products and the technologies that my clients develop, and creating a long form sales page, you can hook people in, you can pull them in, you can empathize with them on a very emotional level, pull them into a long sales pitch. And I don't doubt that will work if you want to sell like health pills or kind of crappy fake fitness products. But we're trying
Mm-hmm.
to sell high value technology products. People are making a purchase that has some emotional connotations, but there's a huge amount of analytics involved, and analysis. And does this align with our short-term and long-term objectives? There are multiple people involved in the sales process, and making an emotional sale doesn't work as soon as somebody else is involved in the sales process. If I'm selling to you directly right now, Jake, I can get you into a half Nelson, in a metaphorical sense, and
Mm-hmm.
pull various levers in you, insecurities or hopes and dreams you have. But as soon as you get up out of your chair and you have to tell your CEO about buying this product, it falls to pieces.
Mm,
And the nature of B2B SaaS is people aren't pulling the plug today. People sorry, wrong analogy. They aren't hitting the button to hit buy today. They're going to do it a month from now, 6 months from now, and they're going to talk to 5 or 10 people in between. And this whole kind of pulling people into a really long emotional sales pitch is just not how we do that. Another thing as well is that we're also trying to create an experience that's very easy to navigate. And the whole basis of website copywriting, the reason why a good website copywriter needs to understand things like SEO, typography, and design is people like to skim read. And so we're
mm-hmm.
trying to create a narrative where somebody can land on the homepage, skim through and read the primary headlines, the H1s, the H2s, the H3s, and without engaging in any of the paragraph copy, they understand the pitch. So one of the tips I like to have is, if I take away all of your paragraph copy, all of a size 12 font, and all we have left are the headlines, do I have a complete sales pitch?
Mm,
And if I don't, then you need to work on that. Reading a paragraph copy should be completely optional. So you can skim through a page, and in 15, 20 seconds from the headlines alone, I understand exactly what your product does. I understand what you're asking of me. So these kind of generic headlines like features in a headline are BS. You always need to have a headline capture the value that's in the paragraph underneath.
Love that. That's a great tip. I'm taking notes here, and I've got a question from Matt Yesbeck. He says, what are some underrated or overlooked elements on a service-based business website that, when written well, have an outsized impact on conversions? Great question. What do you think?
That's a very good question. I'm going to think about that for a sec. I think a lot of it for service-based business is going back to what I was talking about earlier. Segmenting, basically, understanding we can segment in 2 or 3 different ways. Who are the different people involved in this purchase process? The end user, C-suite, management. You might have a whole page for each of them, but a lot of the time what I do is just have a breakout section after the main sales pitch and have like a mini box for each of those people describing, here are the benefits for end users, here's the benefits for C-suite, here's the benefits for management. Another one we do is when we get to, you have a typical structure, the hero section, the pain points, here's a solution in a nutshell, walk people through a 4 to 5 step typical journey, then a call to action, what I call the midway call to action. Underneath that, I often have another section, which might be industries or use cases. And I could have 3, 5, 6 boxes where we look at, here are the specific benefits for this particular type of industry. We can do this for engineers. We can do this for finance. Here are particular use cases that we solve or particular problems that we solve. And you can also, as you get more advanced, link those out to dedicated pages for those types of end user, types of problem, types of solution, types of industry. So if your main pitch is somewhat agnostic, you're giving these individual end users or industries a little box where you specifically hone in on exactly how your product can help them. It's also helpful as well if you are, like, a really common situation is a startup has one audience that they're really dominating and they're doing great. They've kind of saturated that market. And they've got 2 new audiences that they are interested in, they think could be a fit, but they aren't sure yet. And I'll often make the page kind of agnostic, then have several boxes. Box A, talking about the benefits of that primary audience we saturated. Boxes B and C, talking about these secondary audiences that we think might like our product. And then we can funnel them off to a dedicated sales page as well and see if they engage that too as well. So they enable you to play around and test your page for a new audience without changing the entire sales pitch.
Very cool. And that actually answers a question I had earlier, or you added some more color to it about when you have a business that is kind of serving different categories or audiences, like, C-suite, or maybe it's, a certain type of management or whoever the end user is, and you're able to kind of allow them to orient themselves from the home page into those dedicated sections where then that page is speaking directly to that person, whatever problems they're experiencing, solutions, et cetera. So thank you, Matt. Good question. Always appreciate Matt's contribution to the live stream when we're streaming here. I want to circle into design because that's something that I don't feel like it's talked about enough in terms of bridging copy and design in a way that's meaningful and creates, a really strong end product. What are some things that, let me think of how to ask this question, because there's like the lens of the copywriter and then there's like the angle from the designer and how to think about that bridge between copy and design. What would be your, I guess, recommendation or advice for how to, let's just start with as a copywriter, when you're writing copy, how should you think about that from a design perspective?
Yeah, this is a really this is pretty much where I kind of spend most of my time, is that copy design crossover. And I started off having conflicts with design teams, and I went out trying to research best practices and what is the book of a course that's good at tackling this. And there really isn't a lot. And I think a lot of value gets lost here. A lot of copywriters get frustrated that they hand over their work, and from their perspective, it gets butchered by a design team. And lots of designers get frustrated because they're given a crappy Google Doc or Word doc that's unstructured, and they have to figure out how to put that into a design. If you are doing any kind of website design, you'd better wireframe your work. If you aren't doing it properly. You've got to wireframe your work. People use Balsamic, I think, is a popular one. I just
Mhm.
jumped in a deep end and got straight into Figma. So I've got my own wireframe pack copy base, which you can check it out, look at the testimonials. A bunch of people are using, a bunch of copywriters are using now to build their own wireframes. Essentially, just presenting your work in you can do it in Google Sheets. Though you don't have to buy my pack, you can go to Google Sheets, and I used to create tables in Google Sheets. So if you wanted to say you need to study SEO first of all. For example, we have H1, H2, H3 headlines, which is, most people, I hope, listening understand, that's your SEO hierarchy. So my H1 is
Mhm.
the main page title at the top. I then have an H2 section where I'm talking about the H2 could be the audiences we serve. And I have
Mhm.
underneath 3 different audiences that are H3s. You go and create a little table that's 2x3 grid. You merge across the top to make it a nice wide box. And then you have 3 boxes underneath. And within that, you can just then go and write your H2 headline, your H3 underneath, and then you might paragraph copy too. So you're always thinking about creating these wireframes for your copy and making sure you've got 3H3 headlines that are kind of a similar length, because you understand they're going to be stacked portrait on a mobile phone. They'll be
Yep.
sideways on a desktop. I mean, one of the things I did when I started out was I just spent a lot of time browsing through different websites. I got a cool app called CSS Scan Pro. It's like $100. You can
Mm.
just use the inspect tools feature in Chrome. It's a bit more clunky. I just spent a long time looking at my favorite brands, looking at big companies, looking at small startups. How do they align the copy with the design? What kind of fonts do they use? Not that I have to use them as a copywriter, but it's helpful to be aware. What kind of colors do they use? One of the big ones I like to use is using contrast in my copy as well. So if you look at
Yep.
Apple's website, they like to have slabs of technical copy in a low contrast color. So it might be a white background with a gray color. And then
Yep.
they'll pick out a particular benefit in a higher contrast color. So you can skim through and you can pick out the benefits for copy without reading it. So it's important to think about that sort of thing as well, how you can build that into your work. But I'd say whether you're using Google Docs or Figma, you've really got to think about what I call the content architecture. And the worst thing in design is the idea that a designer creates a design and they sprinkle words in after the fact, like a cooking ingredient. Like, that's absolutely not how you build a website.
Yep.
The copywriter should create what we call a content architecture. Here is the copy, here is the layout, and the designer works around that content architecture. And you really have to
Sure.
kind of bully your way of design teams a bit and make it clear, I'm a copywriter, I'm in charge of content
Yeah.
architecture. You don't
Sure.
create something for me to follow.
Yep.
I know. I'm on a live stream. I'll be right out.
Sorry, I had a little
Oh,
emergency come up. I'm actually going to have to. No, that was great. My kids are stranded at school right now,
oh,
so.
good. No worries. Sorry to hear that.
But yeah, yeah. So unfortunately, I have to. This is such a great conversation. Unfortunately, I have to wrap it up. And but I do want to just before we go. I had a note written down. Sorry, I just got totally
Good.
train derailed right there. So I want to ask you for us to kind of wrap up here, and I've got a banner for people that want to connect with you. What would be, we got your website here, alexnapierholland.com. What would be the best place for people to get in contact with you to, um, to learn about what you do? I'm super interested in your Figma packs for the copy, because that's something that's always a challenge for me in web design. And just how people can get more from what you offer.
Yeah, so my agency website, which is predominantly for people hiring me to write their copy, is gorillaflow.com.
Okay.
And then my kind of general more about me website is alexnapierholland.com. And they both kind of link to each other. You can head to either one of them. They both link to my Figma pack. I also offer like paid mentor sessions. People can hire me for like 15 minutes and ask questions about their copy or about getting into the industry. You can book those on the alexnapierholland.com website as well. My main channel is Twitter. So it's a mixture of copy, a little bit of politics in there as well as a warning. But yeah, complaining about the state of the UK is one of my other topics, but that's for another podcast.
Sure. Awesome. Well, I appreciate everything, Alex. Sorry, I got to cut it short.
Oh,
You never know. You never know when things like this pop up. But this has been just fantastic. I've learned so much. Really appreciate you taking the time to come onto the live stream and share this value. It's always a challenge trying to figure out exactly how to craft your messaging in a way that resonates and creates action. You know, that's what we're all trying to do. That we're all trying to create action, you know, within our content, whether it be, and I think a lot of this can even spill over into social media and email to a lot of the principles that you're talking about. So, you know, it goes beyond the website if you really go back and listen to what you're talking about. So want to say thank you. Appreciate you being here. And we're going to go ahead and wrap up. Thank you everybody for watching, and we'll see y'all on the next one.
thanks, Jake.